All right, so anyone else getting to that age where like one day you're rocky at the gym and the next you're winded just carrying in groceries?
Oh, tell me about it. I thought I was the only one.
Like, what happened to my invincible 20s?
Right. Seriously.
Well, today we're diving into that and more with some insights from fitness expert Abhinav, who you can find on X at mutant1643.
Yeah, he's got a really interesting thread called Strength and Muscle Course. And today we're specifically looking at tweet number 2, which is all about how to train differently for strength versus hypertrophy.
Especially as we get older.
Yeah, especially if you're over 30, which, let's be real, a lot of us are.
Okay, spill the tea. What is the deal with 30? Is that like some kind of magical fitness threshold?
Well, Abhinav points out that's actually when things start to change a bit faster, like in terms of our strength and muscle.
Really, I always figured as long as I looked about the same in the mirror, I was good.
See, that's the thing. You could look exactly the same, but be losing that inner strength without even realizing it.
Wait, so I could be like a shiny sports car with no engine?
Pretty much what Abhinav is saying is after 30, our strength starts declining faster than our muscle mass goes down.
Interesting. So even if I'm holding on to those biceps,
Your power takes a hit.
power being...
That burst of energy you need to like sprint across the room or, catch yourself if you trip.
Oh, the things I take for granted now.
And it gets even worse when you look at power specifically because that seems to decline even earlier than your overall strength.
So we're talking like peak power in our 20s and then downhill from there.
Well, not necessarily downhill, but definitely something to be aware of, which is why building those reserves up when you're younger is key.
So it's like investing in your fitness 401k. Got to start early. Okay, so glad we're talking about this because now I need to know, when we talk about training, what's the difference between training for strength versus hypertrophy? Is it all just lifting heavy things?
You hit on such a key question, and actually someone asked Abhinav this directly on X. They're doing dumbbell bench presses and decline cable presses.
Okay, pretty standard gym routine.
Right, and they want to know, is that strength training or hypertrophy?
I'm curious to hear this one too because I feel like I've always wondered that myself. Break it down for us.
So you're right, both of them involve weights, but the goals and how you approach them are totally different. Strength training is all about increasing how much force your muscles can generate. Literally, how much weight can you move?
Okay, so like 1 rep max, how much can I lift just once?
Exactly. Or think of it as like functional strength for everyday life.
Like being able to move furniture without throwing your back out?
Right, or like carrying all the grocery bags in one trip instead of making multiple runs.
The everyday things that suddenly become a lot harder when you don't have that strength.
Exactly. Now, hypertrophy, on the other hand, is about increasing the size of your muscles.
So that's where we get into the whole getting ripped looking swole thing.
Yeah, it's about those visible changes in muscle definition.
Hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong, hypertrophy has its own benefits beyond aesthetics, which we can get into.
We'll definitely dig into those.
But at its core, it's about making those muscles bigger.
Okay, so different goals. Got it. But when I'm at the gym, how do I actually put that into practice?
That's the million-dollar question. And luckily, Abhinav has given us the answers.
So you're telling me there's a right way and a wrong way a bench press?
Well, more like a right way depending on what your goals are.
All right, I'm listening. What's the first thing I need to know?
Let's talk about load intensity, which basically means how heavy are you going?
Okay, makes sense. So for strength training, we're talking like maxing out, right? Pushing those limits.
Exactly. For strength, you want to be lifting around 85 to 100% of your 1 rep max.
So basically a weight where I might need a spotter, just in case.
Safety first, always. But yeah, we're talking heavy lifting here. Now for hypertrophy,
We're going lighter.
a bit. You're looking at more like 65 to 80% of your 1 rep max.
Interesting. So heavier for raw power, lighter for muscle growth.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What about reps? How many times am I supposed to actually lift the darn thing?
Another great question. For strength training, remember, it's all about quality over quantity.
Okay, I can get behind that.
So low reps with that heavy weight.
Yeah.
Usually somewhere between 1 to 5 reps per set.
Each rep being nice and slow and controlled.
You got it. Slow and controlled, especially when you're working with that much weight.
Don't want to be sloppy and hurt myself.
Right.
Now, what about hypertrophy? More reps, I'm guessing.
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
With hypertrophy, it's less about hitting a magic number of reps and more about reaching muscle failure.
Muscle failure, as in my muscles are literally giving up on me.
Basically. However many reps it takes for you to get to that point on that particular day.
Interesting. So really pushing it to the limit no matter what makes sense if we're trying to force those muscles to grow.
Right. And speaking of pushing it, what about sets? Do we change those up too, or?
Oh, yeah, I was just about to ask that. How many sets are we talking per exercise?
So both styles might use a similar number of sets, somewhere around 3 to 5.
Okay, got it.
But the big difference is what you do between those sets.
Oh, interesting. All right, you're killing me here. Spill it. What's the secret sauce?
Rest intervals. How long you rest between those sets. That's where the magic happens, or at least part of it.
Okay, so for strength training, I'm guessing those breaks are crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to give those muscles time to recover so you can hit that heavy weight with everything you've got. We're talking 3 to 5 minutes, maybe even more between sets.
Gotcha. So strength training is all about those bursts of energy. Max effort, then recover and repeat.
Yeah.
What about hypertrophy? Shorter rests to keep the momentum going.
You're getting it. Hypertrophy thrives on something called metabolic stress. Basically, you want shorter rests, usually around 60 to 90 seconds. Just enough time to catch your breath and then jump back in.
Okay, so strength training is like a sprinter taking breaks between sprints, and hypertrophy is more like a marathon runner pacing themselves.
I like that analogy. It's about keeping that intensity simmering.
Got it. Now, what about the types of exercises we do? Does it matter what moves I'm doing?
It definitely can.
Yeah.
For strength training, you generally want to focus on big compound movements that work several different muscle groups at once.
Okay, so like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Those are your bread and butter for building overall strength and power.
The classics. No wonder I feel like a superhero after a good set of those. What about for hypertrophy?
Hypertrophy can actually incorporate both compound and isolation exercises.
Okay, so we're still doing the big ones, but...
You can also bring in exercises that really target specific muscles. Things like bicep curls, tricep extensions, anything that helps you zone in on those individual muscles and really encourage growth.
So it's like strength training is the general contractor building the foundation, and then hypertrophy is the interior designer coming in to really make those muscles pop.
I love that analogy. It's all about the details.
This is fascinating. I never realized there was so much strategy involved.
There's a lot more to it than just picking up heavy things.
That's for sure. Okay, last question on my list, Tempo. Is there a difference in how fast or slow I should be moving the weight?
There is, and it's an important one. For strength training, you want a controlled eccentric phase.
Eccentric phase, remind me what that is again.
That's the lowering part of the lift. So like when you're lowering the bar back down to your chest during a bench press.
Right.
So controlled eccentric and then an explosive concentric phase,
Concentric beam.
the lifting part. So you're lowering the weight slowly and then exploding up with power.
Okay, I think I can handle that. Slowly down. Up. Got it. What about hypertrophy? Are we channeling our inner sloth?
Not quite a sloth, but definitely slower and more controlled throughout the entire movement, both the lifting and the lowering.
So really savoring the burn, making those muscles work.
Exactly. The goal is to keep the muscle under tension for as long as possible, because that's what leads to those micro tears we talked about earlier.
And those micro tears are ultimately what makes the muscles grow bigger and stronger.
You got it. It's all connected.
This is blowing my mind. I need to rethink my entire workout routine.
Well, hold on. We haven't even gotten to the really cool part yet.
Okay, so we've covered now tell me why. Why do these techniques actually matter? What's going on in my muscles when I train this way?
This is where it gets really cool. Because all of this is actually targeting specific adaptations inside your body.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So strength training, it's all about your nervous system. Like we're talking brain to muscle connection.
So like instead of just bigger muscles, it's like I'm upgrading the control panel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those heavy loads, the explosive movements, it's teaching your brain to communicate with your muscles way more efficiently.
Yeah.
So the signal that tells those muscle fibers to fire.
It's like a superhighway instead of a back road.
Right. Hypertrophy, on the other hand, that's more about the muscles themselves. Those controlled movements, shorter rests, that creates something called metabolic stress.
Okay, metabolic stress. Now I'm a little scared. Am I damaging myself?
Not damaging. Think of it like this. It's like you're creating these tiny little micro tears in the muscle fibers.
Micro tears. So I'm basically giving my muscles a tiny workout-induced injury.
In a way.
Mm.
But those micro tears are a good thing because that's how your body knows to rebuild those muscles bigger and stronger.
So it's like my body's going, oh no, gotta repair this. Better make it stronger next time.
That's a great way to put it. And all that leads to some pretty amazing real-world benefits.
Okay, benefits time. We touched on it a bit, but for those of us who aren't training for a weightlifting competition, How does this actually play out in everyday life?
Well, with strength training, it's not just about being able to lift heavy things. It's
Huh.
also about improving your coordination overall.
Oh, interesting. So I'm less likely to trip and fall walking up the stairs.
Exactly. Your body's just better at handling whatever weird movements or awkward positions life throws your way.
Okay, I'll take less clumsy any day. No, what about hypertrophy? Besides, obviously, looking awesome, what are the perks there?
Well, the biggest one is probably endurance because you're training your muscles to work harder for longer. You'll find you can do more reps, you can push yourself further before hitting that wall.
So, like, I can actually make it through a whole workout without needing a nap midway through.
Exactly. Plus, all that new muscle mass helps with nutrient delivery waste removal, which means you recover faster after those tough workouts.
So it's a win-win. I'm sold. This has been eye-opening. Thanks for breaking it all down.
Anytime. And the takeaway here is really to know yourself. Figure out what's important to you. What are your goals? What do you want to get out of your training?
Because there's no right or wrong answer here.
Exactly. It's all about what works for you and your body. And honestly, that's what I love so much about fitness, is that it can be so personal. And understanding the why behind what you're doing can make all the difference.
Couldn't agree more. Well said. That's going to do it for today's deep dive. Be sure to check out Apenov's thread on X at mutant1643 for even more insights.
And think about it. What are your fitness goals? What matters most to you, strength or size? Or maybe a little bit of both. The choice is yours.
Until next time, keep those muscles guessing, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.